like them over here in the corner. I think it's fine to start here. We have a new installment of our Art of series based on my book, The Art of Home, and we are taking you through all of the places in your home that you could use some help. We get lots of questions about shelves. I am at our office today and we've got a few shelves that could use an update, and so I'm starting in Sid's office. I share this in my book and I share the step-by-step process, but the very first step is always to start with a blank slate and to take as much off as possible and then spread it out in front of you. For the sake of time today, I've taken some off and I have new objects here, but I left a few things on and we'll walk you through each step. So you want to take inventory of what you're working with. The key here is mixing. So you want to make sure that you're mixing shapes, sizes, and styles of objects. You want coffee table books, you'll want some boxes, maybe some storage objects, some decorative pieces, vases, leaned artwork. All of these things work together in harmony on a bookshelf, really in whatever room you are working in. And if you notice that you're like, I'm just a person that gets a lot of vases, and you're taking inventory of what you have, then it's time to say, okay, I need to mix in some other shapes, boxes and some objects and maybe some baskets to balance out all of your bases. Once you've cleaned the slate and taken inventory, you want to start with the foundational pieces, and typically these are the largest pieces. If you have bookshelves that you want to incorporate baskets into, this is usually where I start. So am I doing baskets all the way across the bottom, or am I spreading them out? In this case, we have these really cool metal bins with the leather ties, and with the space that we have from here to here, I needed something large to fill the space. And Sid already had these, and they are staying because they just work really well in here. The colors, the height, and they ground these shelves. So we're starting here. You can also see kind of how this balance is happening with my large pieces. So I have my stacked boxes and then a really large vase here. And so one, I'm getting balance of my large objects, and then I'm setting a foundation for each shelf. Coffee table books and, reading books, they're part of building that foundation. And like the large objects, you want to spread them out and create balance, but you also want to switch up how you display them. So don't just put a stack of one and then do that everywhere. Do stacks of 1, 2, 3, lay them flat, turn them up, maybe place them together or between bookends, like just spread them out throughout the space. And you can see we've got some division here and they're balanced throughout. We might be able to use even a couple on this bottom shelf here because we've pushed all the books up. The key again is just to look for balance and spacing. And you'll hear me say balance rather than symmetry because I don't think that symmetry creates a beautiful bookshelf. I think balance does. The next step is all about creating groupings. And so I love this equestrian object. It is one of your favorites as well because we get a lot of love on social for it. So I'm gonna add this to Sid's office. And I think that one of these stacks of books is calling for this horse. So we could go up top, or I could create a grouping over here, but I will probably move these things around a couple of times because you just have to kind of play with it, but I'm going to start by adding this little horse object here. And then I have a plant as well, and greenery goes a long way. And so I've got a little fern, we're going to add that. I'm going to look at adding that maybe, let's see, maybe right here. But then I don't really like how these things are perfectly lined up, so I might move this down and then adjust it later. I have a large object here, and this is a nice sculptural object. Good objects are really hard to find. So when you see one that you like, you should buy it, because some of them are like weird and kind of cheesy. And so if it has a nice sculptural shape to it, it's gonna bring height and texture to your shelves. And so put it in that, closet. Like I have a closet filled with things that I've been inspired by, and they always come in handy at clients' houses or in situations like this. Okay, so I collect a lot of vintage art pieces, but if you don't collect a lot of vintage art pieces, you can start, or you can just take a framed photo or anything that's small. And I love leaned artwork because it adds color and it changes up the shape, and it also adds dimension, because usually you can like lean them at the back, or you can pull them forward and place them on an easel, and it just helps differentiate your shelves from the norm of books, box, vase. I have this easel. This is probably in every single Studio McGee home that we've ever designed, because it just comes in handy. We'll use this on a kitchen counter for artwork. We'll put it on bookshelves. We'll put it on a console. I like also that this is taking up visual space vertically. I feel like I could like this here, but I might also like it on this space below. Maybe put that here. I like this horse object here a lot, and because I have an object here, I don't want to place another object right next to it, but I could use one here potentially. We have these cylinder shapes that we launched at McGee & Co, and I'm in love with them because they're simple forms, but you get a really great material in different colors. And so we have the cube and the cylinder, and then we have this shape here, and I feel like we could incorporate those, maybe one of these on a shelf here. I love the cylinder. Do we want all three? I don't know. I can't see. You guys tell me. You tell me what you think. Do you like the square? I like the square or this one. You see me do this about 100 times because you can't just look at what's happening here. You have to make sure that this vignette looks good, and then when you step back and look at it as a whole, that it all works. And I'm starting to feel like these two things are stacked a little bit too closely on top of each other, and then I'm getting this gap here. So if I just shift this a little bit, then we're getting like a nice back and forth happening. And then if I move these boxes, it fills in this hole happening right here. That's starting to feel pretty good to me, but then what will happen is then like I'm gonna get stuck in this, then I'm gonna find something that works, and then I gotta adjust what's happening. It's just a fluid process, so settle in and be prepared to maybe like take a lunch break and then come back to it, because shelf styling sometimes just means you gotta do it, step away, and then come look at it again. I love these leather bins. Sid already had this in his office, and it's great because you can hide remotes and just like random things, but then it looks good on your shelf. I love the tone of the leather in this dark space as well. So we've got this here. I feel like I could maybe potentially use another stack of books. Do I do a stack, or I like the personal picture frame, and so I like that little one there, but I could also see it happening if we put, let me see if I have this here. It's like, do we want, I don't know if I like that. I feel like I like this there, and then I could put this box up on the top shelf and then move the bin down below. Like, that doesn't fit, but I could take it off the other. We have these bowls. What are bowls? we want to get rid of the object. This could go here. Here. And then I have these other pots that are pretty, or we have this large pot, but is that too big underneath that other, you know what I mean? I see those two. Do I like that placement? I actually think that feels okay. You know, I wonder, I know we have this large vase here, but we have these really large ones over here. You know, like, does this go with and then it has the handle. Okay, I stole a pot from somewhere else. I was struggling because I felt like the length of this shelf needed to be extended a little bit. And this moment right here, like, although I liked all these objects together, it just wasn't filling the space. But then I was struggling because I had this large vase here and I didn't want to stack something exactly like it right below it. So this is a good solution because it has a handle. When we're styling, like, I love ceramics and vases that have handles. So I have to be really conscious to not overly handle things. And this is a nice balance because these are broken up and also I didn't stack them directly on top of each other. So I'm feeling pretty good. And I had these actually across on a console and they were like this, but this looks like too many things in a row. And so just nesting them gave them an extra little layer and that was all it needed. The beauty of styling is that it's very forgiving and it's always evolving. You wanna make sure you're not feeling pressured to use every single item that you have. I have a lot of leftovers and although I love these pieces, they just weren't working. And so as you collect, you might want to do a refresh of your shelves and one of these objects will come in handy at that time. Okay, I'm not going to look at it anymore. I'll keep changing things. So we're in another spot in our office and I have the Kensington cabinet behind me and many of the same things that I shared in Sid's office will apply. Balance, scale, change up your shape, but things are a little different when you have two glass doors because rather than just treating each shelf like one long shelf, you need to think about what happens when the doors are closed and how each individual space peeking through the glass looks. So I'm really actually dividing this into two sections and everything will end up pretty stacked through here. And so the key will be to create little vignettes that work together like this. So I have a few books already placed in this cabinet, kind of zigzag them so we've got a nice balance throughout. And anytime you can incorporate a basket, this is like a no-fail approach to filling at least one of your shelves. This one here, I like that we're getting a tone that actually closely matches this bookcase. I'm going for light, soft neutrals inside of this bookcase rather than a heavy contrast. And so we're gonna start here. Even though that doesn't look good when it's open, when it's closed, we're actually getting somewhere. I think that it could maybe use a little bookend, but rather than a traditional bookend, I might look at something that is just an object to place next to my books so that we can add some interest and break tradition there. So I've got a nice situation happening on the bottom shelf and then I'm gonna work my way up. I have a piece of artwork here. As I mentioned before, I love to incorporate artwork into bookshelves. And this one here is perfect because we've got that deep green tone that ties in with this marble object. And I feel like this could go here or it could go here. We'll start there. Then a stack of boxes. And these are chagrin boxes with this antique brass handle that we use all the time because they add texture, some height, and they go with everything. So I don't want them to go here because I've got a stack that mimics this and then a stack that mimics this. So I'm gonna move this to the shelf below. Then, I haven't used any vases, and so I will start here with this dark base. And I know I mentioned that I'm doing light neutrals, but I changed my mind. I'm gonna do this this is a plum color vintage base. And so I'm gonna put this in here. When I shut it, I'm just getting like thing. Everything's stacked and I need a pair of something. So I have another dark vase, and these are not sold as a set. And I think that this is a tip when you're collecting. Like items work together, but they don't have to be like you bought the matching set for them to work together on a shelf. So these have some connection through tone and shape, and they look great together, and it looks more collected to just have some continuity but not have them be so matchy-matchy. You'll notice that I keep shutting this because I gotta see how it looks once the doors are shut and how things are coming together. I've only incorporated one object, and I want something a little funkier. Like the geometric is great, it adds some color and a great material with the marble, but I want something more interesting in the shelves. I have this Baroque shell object. This is in my house, it's one of my favorites, and then I have this little swan object that's so fun. This shape for me is mimicking the petrified bookends too much, so I'm gonna take that out. And one other note when placing objects, feel free to not just center all of your objects on top of books. Like you can shake it up and just kind of move things off to the side, so it just feels a little bit more interesting. I've used artwork, I've used books, boxes, a basket, some objects, but I actually haven't used a bowl shape yet, and so I think this little bowl here will be perfect, and I love the little ball feet. So I'm gonna place that here. It's feeling pretty good. I kind of wish that there was, do I wish that there was one other thing in front of the artwork? Maybe. This canister is so cute, but right now I have like the ball feet on the bowl, and it feels repetitive to then add another object that has that like ball shape. So I'm going to avoid that for now, unless I decide to make a change. Does that, the brass and brass feel kind of, what about our pitcher? It's feeling a little overpowering. That could be cute. Okay, this is feeling good. I've shifted things around a couple of times. I've made sure all my items are balanced. This was the finishing touch. What I was struggling with is the artwork has a brass frame, and then I was grabbing objects that had a brass frame, and then it was just feeling really repetitive with the layers. And so it's kind of this puzzle always. So, you know, I'd put something on and then it would feel too similar to what was happening next to it or what was happening above or below. And this ends up being the winner because it's not like the other things around it. And then the tones work really well with what's happening in the field part of this artwork. So we get a more elongated shape than what's happening through here. The tones are different, the texture's different. We get this little rope detail, but you can see how there's a point of connection here, and then also a point of connection with what's happening throughout the shelves. And we'll close it, take one last step back, and it's kind of like if there isn't anything that makes me kind of like go like this, then I know I'm in a good spot and it feels good. I'm in the lunch break room area of our office, and the same principles that I shared in Sid's office apply to these more kitchen-focused shelves. The key here is kitchen, so we're using the room as inspiration. So we've got bowls and plates, and I like kitchen styling to be both functional and beautiful, and so we're not going to just put like objects and coffee table books. We're going to be using cookbooks and dishware and things that actually serve a purpose, but we're only putting out our best items. So I've got these beautiful McGee & Co plates, and we've leaned cutting boards. This is kind of the equivalent of like an art piece. Yes, we have one up here, but I think cutting boards act as that back layer to build upon. In kitchens with artwork, I mean, I tend to gravitate toward pieces that are like still lifes. Maybe they incorporate fruit or something that kind of speaks to the kitchen. That said, I'll use landscapes in there as well. But this is just like the Studio McGee aesthetic. I tend to not incorporate an abstract that's very contemporary. I like to add charm through artwork in a kitchen. Then books that are placed in different areas with some balance. We've mixed bowls and canisters, we've mixed heights, added in some greenery. All of those tips apply to your living room shelves, a small bookshelf in a bedroom, and then in a kitchen space, it's all about just using those more utilitarian items and same principles of good design and incorporating those.